Well, I'm quite super excited to share something my team and myself have implemented quite recently, which kind of improved the way that we respond to incidents. And as you can tell on the title, I'm calling it as cutting down MTTR using Rundeck. I guess first a bit about me. For some reason, I lost the control, Rami, to move the slides. No, I got it. Sorry, it's just me. My apologies. All right, so a bit about me. I work for Telstra. For those who are not in Australia region, Telstra is one of the largest telecommunication provider in Australia, and we are Australia's largest 5G network provider, and also one of the famous household names, I suppose. But most of all, I think it's a great organization to work for. I have been working in Telstra for 16 plus years. I remember I started off as a junior developer in IT operations space. I felt like I always had an interest in looking at process automation and process improvements and things like that. And then slowly moved on to a senior developer, then an application development lead looking after people and building applications, and then moved on to be an SRE lead. Now at the moment, I'm supporting an on-premises server in platform. And part of that, my team, we are made up of three types of skills, essentially network engineers, SRE engineers, and infrastructure engineers. And we kind of a DevOps team in the sense the infrastructure we take care of pretty much from the design, the implementation, the life cycle, the operations, all sort of things. It's and managed by the team. And each of the team members would be interacting with the different stack of the infrastructure, right? But if you can imagine, if anyone of you are from the operations space, you could imagine that as the infrastructure grew, which is kind of what happened to us, like we continue to grow with what we were hosting on our infrastructure, the operations burden tend to grow as well. Then as an SRE, I guess one of your remit is to look for toil or waste, so to speak, and then look for process efficiency. And one such area that kind of we wanted to focus on was the incident response process. Now, just for context, so there are two types of incidents that we usually manage. I call it proactive and reactive. I don't know what the industry usually calls. I'm doing the presentation, so I'm just going to go with proactive and reactive. So the proactive incident usually are alerts, generally captured through a monitoring tool, which then gets translated to an incident. We currently use PagerDuty to manage those incidents. And the way those incidents come to an incident responder is through escalation policies and schedules. So no human is really involved in terms of when it starts, when it hits the end. And I guess the key to the proactive incident is, if you think about it, probably the customer hasn't realized the problem yet. So that means timely response is a key there. So the sooner that we respond, I guess it's quite important that we minimize the impact for our customers. So the next stream is reactive incidents. So reactive meaning the tenants or the customer came to know about the incident first. So they are letting us know that there is a problem. So the way we do it today is we have an engagement form. We ask the customer to enter in what the problem is. It ends up in Jira as a Jira bug. Then our Scrum lead usually goes and have a look at it, and then they triage it for the team, and then they would assign it to the right individual, be it level 1 staff or level 2 staff or network engineers and so on and so forth. So if you imagine, if I'm being an incident responder, I suppose, like I have to interact with two tools all of a sudden, right? And each tool have its own way of, capturing notes or assignment or reassignments or escalation. So all of that are really different between the tools. And when it comes to managing priorities, I suppose like in one place you would see the priorities different, the other place is different. So it's really not one place you get to see all of them happening. So the priorities are misplaced in different places. And also incident correlation as well. So probably some of the reactive incidents can be related to other proactive incidents, but because it's sitting in two different tools, we kind of lose the track of how it is all related or come together, right? And what naturally happens to this is then it increases the toil because the incident responder is interacting with two different tools and managing it differently, right? Which as a side effect to that increase in toil, it raises our MTTA and MTTR, which was the case for us. Like we can see the proactive incidence is quite good in terms of MTTR compared to the reactive incidence is quite slacking in a way because it's sitting in two different places. And I guess in the side effect to that increase in MTTA and MTTR is a poor tenant or our customer experience, right? So what we kind of wanted to do as a wish list, I suppose, is we wanted to use one tool, right? Just because of what I said before in the previous slide, we wanted to use one tool. And naturally, in our mind, PagerDuty made sense because we were quite good in terms of managing our proactive incidents because of what the features that PagerDuty had. So we wanted to have one tool, and in our mind, it was always PagerDuty to have managed both the tools, both the incident types, right? And at the same time, we didn't want to change the whole end-to-end process, particularly what happens on the customer end. As such, SRE, you wanted to always do a POC and then iterate based on how it worked and then continue to iterate to make it perfect. So that means when we bring in the customer in that change, if it doesn't work, then it is another change for our customer. So we only looked at the area that we could control. So that meant whatever the customer or the incident requester had, like from the engagement form to the Jira part, we didn't want to touch, at least for this first phase, right? So the common reference point in that case was Jira reference point. Jira reference ID. And then the third thing we wanted was because we are making a change to a small section of the end-to-end flow, we didn't want our incident responders manual, so admin work to be increased. So the automation need to take care of the admin aspect of it. So that's the auto sync between tools. So then the thinking process was, okay, so we have two tools now, like one is our Jira and the other one is PagerDuty. We then started looking at what are the information that we have in Jira we wanted in PagerDuty, and what we have in PagerDuty we needed in Jira. And again, if you think about PagerDuty, and if any of you are PagerDuty users, we have to be very careful on what we are sending into PagerDuty, particularly if it has the power to wake someone up in the middle of the night. We don't want to have noises flooding our incident responder queue. So that means you have to have some level of business logic to protect the incident responder. So that type of thinking process was made in terms of we building the solution, and we ended up with this kind of flow. So I'll quickly run through the flow. So the purple bits are only the human bit. So that human bit did not change with the introduction of what we did, and we had few other components there. So the blue or Atlassian product set. So we have incident engagement form was sitting as a config form in our wiki, which tend to create a Jira ticket, and then Jira has automation, which would invoke a Rundeck webhook, which had a job behind it, which was to evaluate the input that was provided to Rundeck, the type of incident, what priority it has to belong to, is it within the SLA that we agreed with our tenants. So there are a lot of business logic that goes behind it. So the Rundeck would evaluate what priority and urgency that incident has to be created in, and then it would create an incident and then reflect back the PagerDuty incident into Jira. So the Rundeck would do that part. So that's the red part there. And then, so PagerDuty then takes over in terms of incident assignment or notification, all that PagerDuty would take over. So when incident responder gets assigned, they essentially do three actions, right? So either they change the status, or they do leave notes, or they do an assignment or reassignment or escalation, right? So all those interactions then would trigger a webhook from PagerDuty to Rundeck, which then would reflect those changes that happened in PagerDuty into Jira. So essentially, Jira was the incident responder didn't have to go and have a look at Jira at all. Everything was done by Rundeck and then automatically synced into Jira. So for a tenant or a customer who raised the request, their reference, when they look at Jira, they can see everything that happened in PagerDuty, but they didn't have to go and reach and look at PagerDuty, or the vice versa for the incident responder. So what that made for us is then after 7 weeks, so this is kind of immediately taken as a snapshot after 7 weeks. I purposefully did not include MTTA as part of this result because with Jira, it is quite hard to even measure how to do an MTTA because that concept does not exist within Jira, or at least the part that we were using, right? So I did not include that there. In my mind, I think it is 100%, but I don't want to type in 100% just because of the sake of 100% there. But I feel that there is a huge improvement there. But in terms of MTTR and number of open incidents we had between the tools and the age of the incident, there was a significant drop in how we saw in just 7 weeks, right? But I have to also point out something here. Like I have 3 pictures in there for a reason. So I've been talking about the tools and a bit of processes so far, right? But I think it all starts with people. I have to give kudos to my team. I don't know how many of them joined here, but I have to give kudos to the team because they were able to adapt a change to a process, and then the process that was given to them so that they can be guided or probably work within the scope of that process, and then the tool to support, right? So that's where the Rundeck tool came into picture. I guess the reason for us using Rundeck, we've been using Rundeck for 2.5 years, so probably 3 years now, I would say. And as with the team's makeup, as I said, we got infrastructure engineers, SRE engineers, and network engineers. Each of us have our own preferences on what coding language we wanted to use to build our tools, right? Or scripts. So some would use C#, and someone say Bash, and then there's PowerShell, there's Python. But as a team, we wanted to move towards the Python side, but we are still in the transition. So that means we wanted to have a tool which can orchestrate, not just writing a Python code and enabling that Python code to be accessed in different ways, like using a UI or a webhook and other things, but also helps us with the transition where we can have Python code and also have other codes that we can already also have as in steps that we can invoke one step at a time. So that we found that really useful with Rundeck. And the next thing is we are one infrastructure team, and the improvement that we had is a significance that I show that we have other infrastructure teams can also make use of. So that means we could share the workflow, we could share the process, we could also share the code base on how it navigated between the tools with other teams so they can also make use of it. So the reusability is really useful for us. And then inbuilt logging, I don't have to worry about it because it's already there that I can make use of. And the same thing with alerting as well. So when something fails, particularly when we're relying on an automation for notification of incidents, we need to know when this one breaks. So because it has alerting embedded in it, it is quite useful because that's been taken care of as well. And then the last bit is the user interface, the friendly user interface. I have to say this whole piece of work, the automation, was actually built by our undergrad who works with us for 2 days a week. And this was her first project when she started with us in Telstra, and she could finish it in 4 weeks' time, right? So I guess that is yes, she was quite talented in Python and other things that we built, but I guess in terms of how understandable we can use this Rundeck tool, I guess it's a testament of how user-friendly it is, I suppose. I guess as a next step for us, we're going to look at how to sync the things that happens in Jira into PagerDuty, like attachments, notes that the customer would leave into PagerDuty. And we wanted to integrate with ITSM systems. I won't talk about ITSM systems here. I'll just say ITSM system for now. And then we wanted to establish some mean KPI because we tested for 7 weeks. We didn't want to create a KPI, but now that we know what is possible with automation, we wanted to create a mean KPI. Yeah, with that, thank you.